sorry, I have started to record this event because I wanted to be available for those of you who couldn't make it or who will need to leave early. So I have introduced Lorena, and we will have a second speaker in the second half of the session. So today we're having two organizations that work in very parallel and very complementary dimensions, but I won't get into more details. I will let Lorena basically introduce herself and take us all the way there. And thank you, Lorena, for being here. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Miguel. Good morning to everyone. Good morning, good afternoon to everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. And as Miguel mentioned, I've been in Biotrade since 2001, so almost 21 years I've been working on Biotrade. Let me I will do a brief presentation to tell you a little bit some of the background, but also tell you some of the tools that we've been working on. Can you see my PowerPoint well?
Yes, we can see your screen. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay, wait, I don't see mine. I cannot see it. Sorry, 2 minutes. It was working well. Cannot see it very well. Okay. Okay, I cannot see. Sorry, 2 minutes. Okay, there. Can you see?
Yes, there we can see you.
You can see you.
Yes, we can see your presentation. All good.
Okay, perfect. So thanks very much. Let me just start. I will do I divided the presentation in 3 parts. The main line to give you some background and the content of what Biotrade is. Then I'll present you some of the examples of the work that has been done in other regions. And then, as Miguel mentioned, we will be presenting with ITC, with International Trade Center, the Biotrade self-assessment tool. So you have these tools also that's very valuable for companies that want to implement Biotrade. So let me start with a brief introduction of what is Biotrade. What is UNCTAD? So UNCTAD is the main organization within the United Nations that deals with trade and development. And our main goal is really we help developing countries participate more equitably in the international market, in the world economy. How do we do that? Well, we have normally 3 tools that are pillars, which relate to facilitating consensus building, offering technical assistance, but also providing analysis. We were established in 1964, and we have currently 195 member states. Within this, it's Laos, PDR, Myanmar, Vietnam, and we have our headquarters are here in Geneva, in Switzerland, but we also have offices in New York and Addis Ababa, and we are part of the UN Secretariat. So we are not a separate agency like you see, like UNEP. We're really directly into the UN Secretariat. As a UN agency, we also have a mandate that defined every 4 years. Due to COVID, it was a little delayed. So it was last year in October, and in that mandate, all the 195 member states mandated UNCTAD to work on issues related to climate change and environmental issues under the SDG, and biodiversity, and how to tackle the biodiversity crisis is one of those components within the work that we're doing. So let me tell you a little bit about what Biotrade. So as a response to Agenda 21 in 1996, imagine 25 years ago, UNCTAD launched the Biotrade initiative to support developing countries address the loss of biodiversity, but at the same time generate livelihoods through the trade and investment in biodiversity-based products and services. This activity should be in line with the Convention on Biological Diversity, which has 3 pillars, or 3 objectives. The first one is the conservation of biodiversity. The second one is the sustainable use of biodiversity. And important to that, in the third objective, is also the sharing of the benefits that were generated. But will you think, why would that trade agency work on biodiversity? But let me tell you, because biodiversity is the basis for half of the population, of the human population depends on it. Even in Asia, between 50 to 80% of the annual household income depends on non-timber forest products. But also the diversity is important because of the economic side. It represents about half of the world GDP, so approximately 44 trillion US dollars depend on biodiversity and its ecosystem services. And we have also seen, for example, in the marketplace, and the business practices, how they shift, not only because of COVID, but also we see how consumers and policymakers and businesses are aiming to work more sustainably. And there's this study that they determined that by 250, the sustainability markets would be expected to reach between 2 to 6 trillion US dollars. So imagine how huge potential there is. And even The Economist, it launched a study last year with WWF, and it says that the sales of sustainable goods rose by 75% in the last 5 years, and especially during the pandemic. So that is why it's so important, biodiversity, but we see that it's threatened. Right now, around 1 million species are endangered, and we might lose them in the next couple of years, in the next decade. So we are really living a biodiversity crisis, and the use of tools like a Biotrade can help you combine the social, the economic, and environmental issues. And that's why we are really in the center of the 3 pillars of sustainable development. So let me tell you a little bit of how we also see. For example, you have the value chain where you have the producers, the processors, distributors, traders, and consumers. And normally what happens is that the knowledge and environmental responsibility is normally in the first stages of the value chain, while the information, benefits, and value added tends to be at the end of the value chain. So with really what we aim to do with Biotrade, we try to make it more participatory, where we see the ideal like an inclusive and participatory approach, not only for the planning or, for example, for harvesting, but also for decision making. So we combine the producers, the processors, and the companies, and try to come up with a joint inclusive participatory decision process. Also, the information, we aim to ensure that information flows throughout the different stages in the value chain. Also, the benefits, the cost, and the environmental responsibility is not only one actor has all the benefits or all the responsibilities. We distribute it accordingly. And then, of course, the main aim also is that you have value added. We aim that there's value added distributed throughout the value chain. So not only sell raw material, but also try to see how do we increase that value. And of course, you have the benefit for the consumer, but for all the actors. Within this, you have also the supporting institutions and enabling policy environment, where we work, for example, with Elbeta. That's one of our crucial partners in Asia, and they help also all the value chain actors to be more, to try to implement this ideal model and also create an enabling policy environment. So let me just down zoom into what is Biotrade. So Biotrade refers to the activities of production, transformation, and commercializations of products and services derived from biodiversity. This is, it had changed. Before we were only focused on native biodiversity, but as a result of a revision of the Biotrade principles and criteria, we work now on not only native species, but all biodiversity-based species. And to ensure that they are sustainable, so social, economic, and environmentally sustainable, we have the Biotrade principles and criteria. That means that all the activities we implement should go in line with the 7 principles and criteria that you see here in orange in the middle. So the first ones are conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity and the benefit sharing. These are the 3 objectives of the Convention on Biological Diversity that guide the activities on the use and management of biodiversity. For an activity to be sustainable, it has to be economically and socioeconomically feasible. So we also try to ensure that's the third component that we, that's the 4th principle that we really aim to foster. Then the other one, the activities that we support or we aim to, we support and are under Biotrade has to be legal, not only legal at the local level, but also at the national level, international level, they have to fulfill. You need to respect the actors' right of producers, farmers, women, and of course of your workers. And last but not least, we need to be sure that the activities have the right to access those resources. And we focus also on considerations, for example, of food safety, so that the right to access, to use and access the natural resources doesn't go in detriment of the populations that are using those resources. This is the core framework of Biotrade, and within that, we respond to the different mandates. As mentioned, we have the mandate of UNCTAD, that was UNCTAD 15 last year, but imagine we were developed in 96, so now our principles and criteria were aligned with the Millennium Development Goals. Now they're updated to support the Sustainable Development Goals and the Agenda 2030. But we also support multilateral environmental agreements like CBD or CITES. And another interesting or basic component of the work that we do are the different approaches. So we work on the value chain approach, the adaptive management, which considers the identification of impact on species, ecosystems, and the continual improvement of activities. Because as we get more information, we can improve the practices to ensure that we conserve biodiversity, that we are more competitive in the marketplace, that we benefit and provide livelihoods to communities. We also foster the ecosystem approach, which integrates ecological and social issues, as well as interaction and process that are developed in the productive system. So we encompasses all these, the ecosystem approach and the importance of that in the development of our production practices. And lastly, of course, but not least, we also aim to improve the understanding and develop activities that contribute to the sustainable livelihood, particularly of the people that depend on those resources, so that we ensure that the activities and the work we do benefit also the people that are managing and use those resources in a way that provides them a livelihood. But then how does it work in practice? So imagine we have all these SDGs, the UNCTAD mandates, and then we translate them to these 7 principles and criteria. These 7 principles and criteria help us to select and assess companies, value chains, and sectors. By assessing them, you identify and address what are the needs, what are the challenges, what are the opportunities they have to be more competitive in the marketplace. So really, like, our main core is the principles that help to assess. You normally assess, for example, for a sector of value chain, you assess from the end consumer, importer, exporter, processor, and producer of collector. This is normally a practice that is done by partners like Helvetas, who manages like regional programs, but we also have national programs, particularly in Latin America and in Southern Africa. So normally you have a partner who will use the Biotrade principles and criteria, assess the different actors in the value chain, and then develop programs to assist them. But then on the other side, we also have, for example, the Union of Ethical Biotrade, that they use their UBT standard, which is aligned with the principles and criteria, and they work at the company level. So they will go to a company, assess and develop work plans, and monitor the results of the activities that are being implemented so that it complies with their ethical standard. So these are the 2 types of models that we have. And as you see, for us, it's crucial that we work with partners. It's really, Biotrade is a partnership program. We don't centralize activities here in UNCTAD, but the aim is really that the partners have the tools and the knowledge, and they have the expertise because they know the realities of the different regions where we're working to help develop the sector, the value chains, and the businesses. And of course, the aim also of the work that we're doing is also, it's an improvement process. So whenever we find new tools, new methodologies, we also try to incorporate them and share them. For example, in the different partners, we have Biotrade congresses that we develop every 2 years. We also have publications or promote the publications of partners. And our main goal is also to bring these important experiences of the partners in the ground to the policy level, to bring them, for example, to the discussions of the Convention on Biological Diversity, and see how also that can help mainstream the work that we're doing. So let me just tell you a little bit of how we have the different programs in here. Normally you have the national and regional level where we work with different partners. For example, we work in Latin America with government. In there, the focal point has been the ministries of trade promotion agencies in partnership with the ministries of environment, because normally we work on trade and environment at the same time. And as I was mentioning you, they carry the assessment and select the sectors and the value chain where they want to work, where they see there's more promising development in the terms of markets, but also they can have more value added at the local level and can conserve biodiversity or different ecosystems. Then you formulate the strategy, you implement them, and in some cases you also develop and evaluate companies and implement the monitoring systems and technical assistance that can help the companies implement Biotrade principles and criteria. Normally they establish network of partners in the ground that assist the companies, and particularly the role of BSOs is very important because they are seen as a crucial partner that can support the companies implement the Biotrade principles and criteria. So they're really like in the center of helping us translate all the tools and information that we have to the companies and guide them. Normally, the type of national programs and the activities that they're working includes 6 components. The first one is you work at the national and international policy frameworks. As we are normally using how can I say, native species or species that are not well known in the marketplace, there's a lot of issues that you need, for example, duplicity policy gaps that you need to address at the country level. You need research also to define better policies at the end of the day as well. So that's why normally the country program, they have been focusing on these policy frameworks and creating an enabling policy framework. But then it's not only good that you have an enabling policy framework, you need to see how do we access the market. So that's why, for example, we partner with the International Trade Center or with the Dutch Import Promotion Program or the Swiss Import Promotion Program, that they help the companies access international markets. Then you need to work at to develop the sector or the value chain, the specific activities that you help them to enhance quality, traceability, for example. But then on the other component, we normally work on how to, for example, how to ensure that the extraction of the raw material is sustainable. So developing sustainable sourcing practices, enhance business capacity, because we are also, the aim is to have businesses at the end. So they need to know how to manage a business, for example, cost assessments, development business plans. And in some cases, there are also some countries in Latin America that develop access to funding, for example, through public-private partnerships, through factoring, through even commercial credits in a way. So this is how does it work with really when we have national and regional partners. And then this is exactly how do we work when we have the private sector. So in here we put example of the Union for Ethical Biotrade that it works also with the betas very closely. And they do assess the companies and develop work plans to fulfill their Union for Ethical Biotrade or their ethical biotrade standard. They have also developed a very good set of guidelines. For example, the Biodiversity Action Plan, if you have not seen it, I think it's a very valuable tool. They also help, for example, on issues of supply chain management, intellectual property, business to business, and they provide capacity building and technical assistance to the different companies. And this is, it's interesting because it's a spin-off of UNCTAD that was launched in 2007 to actually address the need of the private sector, because we as UN, we cannot give a UN logo, for example, for a company to put it in their packages. But if you want to go into that, the Union for Ethical Biotrade allows you to do that. And they also have a very interesting network of transnational companies that are working with them. So that is a little bit in a nutshell how does Biotrade works at the global level. And then what UNCTAD does in a general, so as Miguel mentioned, we're the UN agency working on trade. and development. As we launched the Biotrade principles and criteria in 2007, we're also the architect and the custodians of the Biotrade concept and the frameworks. So we, for example, in 2018 to 2020, we updated the Biotrade principles and criteria, taking information from all the partners of what has been the implementation, what has worked, what hasn't worked, and what we need to update. So we developed the new principles and criteria that were launched in 2020. We also aim to, we don't work alone. We're really a partnership organization. So we normally steer and coordinate active actions of partners in the ground, for example, on different discussions at the policy levels that are happening right now in Geneva in the Biodiversity Convention, where they're defining the strategy and the path, the global path for the work on biodiversity for the next decade. So for us, it's very important, and particularly the Biotrade programs, because then you will have indicators, you will have incentives that are touching policy frameworks, what do they recognize as sustainable activities? And for us, that's very important. So we try to coordinate partners' inputs and see how do we mainstream into the process. We also have the knowledge sharing and mainstreaming. So we aim to see what are the actors doing in the ground. We try to collect best practices, lessons learned, documents, and even promote the South-South sharing of information. We support the creation of an enabling policy environment. I'll tell you a little bit more about it. We support and facilitate market access and creation of business engagement. We also, for example, as mentioned, we supported the spin-off of the Union for Ethical Biotrade, but now we are also expanding into new areas where we launch in the Caribbean the Blue Biotrade program that it tests the new principles and criteria back to the marine realm. We have some experiences mainly on like shells or tourism, but it is really like the open access species that we're working on. So it's quite a very interesting and pioneer initiative. So let me tell you a little bit of, until now, do you have any question on what is Biotrade before I go to what we're doing in practice? Or we can do the questions afterwards.
I have asked participants in the chat to put in any questions they can have. Just type them in the chat box, and I'll be managing the chat box, and I'll be facilitating the discussion. So please don't hesitate and ask all the questions you may have.
Exactly. I'm here to any questions that you may have. I'm here to address them anytime. So let me then just jump to the second part, which is how does Biotrade work in practice? Let me see why it doesn't go down. Okay. So as we have seen, Biotrade not only works on products such as the personal care, phytopharma, food, fashion, ornamental, flora and fauna, handicraft, textiles, but we also work in tourism, like nature-based tourism. Particularly, for example, partners are focused on bird watching because that's an interesting sector, but also we see a lot of work on partners on the personal care, particularly the cosmetic sector and the functional foods, because that's where the products that we develop have very interesting properties for the industry, but also for the consumers. And there's also an interesting premium price that we can gain. As you saw, we have all this network of partners. And in Asia, for us, our crucial partner is Helvetas, who help implement this regional Biotrade program. But we also work with different government agencies in Vietnam, in Laos. And then we work with the Union for Ethical Biotrade, the Access and Benefit Sharing Capacity Development Initiative, with other UN agencies like United Nations Environment Program, United Nations Development Program. So it's really like a network of partners that can help develop all these sectors. We have some experience, but not much, on REDD+ projects, where we were trying to see how do we combine Biotrade and REDD+ projects to also enhance the income of the companies and the communities that work under Biotrade. So where do we work? Imagine we started with one country in 1998. It expanded to around 5 countries in mid-2000. And now as of last year, we're working in 96 countries. So we have really expanded. In the last year alone, we have increased 30 new countries that are implementing Biotrade. When I say implementing Biotrade, they're implementing the Biotrade principles and criteria that are adapted to the national circumstances with the indicators, but you also have the Union for Ethical Biotrade that they also support implementation of the ethical standards in company supply chains. So we have right now, we see 96 countries. Out of that, 19 are in Asia. We also have around 28 countries in Africa, 17 in Latin America, 2 in North America. We have a lot of countries that are, of companies that are working in Europe, 26 countries in particular in Europe, and even 4 in Oceania. So we have seen how the biotrade is really becoming a world movement where many, many countries are implementing and companies are implementing biotrade. To give you an example, we were around 80 countries, sorry, it was 80 countries last year. Right now, we're implementing in 96 countries. And it's important to highlight that the sales of biotrade, it has grown dramatically. In 2003, we were only 40 million US dollars. Now in 2020, despite the COVID, we were 9 billion. And last year, we just got the result last week. We are over 27 billion euros of biotrade company sales in 2021. So you have seen that despite the COVID, the pandemic, the sector and the demand for type of products that are developed under biotrade principles and criteria has expanded significantly. And then the data that we have is a little bit older, but the last data that we have, it's the beneficiaries that are working on biotrade, directly working on biotrade, meaning the producers, the farmers, the collectors, the hunters, but also the workers, is around 5 million beneficiaries, direct beneficiaries that are working with the different partners. So that is how where do we work, what are the sectors that were involved? And let me tell you a little bit of how does the enabling policy and environment work. So the first areas, I will go through the different areas of how normal partners or the work also with UNCTAD has been taking place. So in this sense, let me just focus on the first one, on the enabling policy environment. It can go all the way from the production to the consumption. It depends on the sector and the value chain. Normally, as I was mentioning, we have new sectors of products. So there's limited product information or even specifications that you may need, for example, for getting a sanitary permit, for getting the requirements to access international markets. You have limited coordination. Sometimes you don't know if it's the Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Forestry. And we really, through the work that we do with the partners, we bring all the actors together and try to come up with policy recommendations. In some cases, we have even supported like the issuance of or protocols of sanitary permits, because the products that we were fostering were not recognized. It was the case in my home country in Ecuador, where we were fostering medicinal plants and they were not recognized. You cannot claim that a plant will help you for digestion, for example. So you have to, they were selling just as infusions, as general teas. So we work with the sanitary authority, with the health authority, with the Ministry of Environment. And after, also we brought the producers, the companies, the processors, and we created a group that through discussions, and they understand, and we also provide policy recommendations, that at the end of, it took us around 6 or 7 months, a new protocol for medicinal plants was issued. So now, like, the companies that are working on infusions could sell in normal supermarkets if they want to claim the health benefits of the plants. Of course, they had already all the research done that can help us prove. So that is really like a specific activity that we supported. But then at international level, it was in early 2000s, there was this trade barrier related to the novel food regulation. Now it's a reformed one, but at that time The novel food regulation really limited the export of products that have not been significantly known in the European Union or significantly traded in the European Union before 1996 or 1997, so I don't remember the exact date. So for example, we have baobab, that is that you see here on the app in the picture of the baobab. This powder is really well known in Africa and very used. It's for food, a very nutritious food, and it wasn't recognized in the European Union. So it was so with the partners, UNCTAD, the Dutch Import Promotion Program, the German, GIZ, governments, developing countries from Asia, Africa, and Latin America, we join together and make the case on the European Commission, European Union, and here in WTO, that the products that are traditionally used should have a facilitation procedure so that they can enter the European Union. Because right now, how they did it, for this baobab product, it was our partners in Africa, Phytotrade Africa, that took them around the cost just to prepare the dossier to fulfill. It cost them between 250,000 to 350,000 euros. And normally they keep to continue updating as the research goes by. So it's not a fixed figure. Only it took them 3 years to submit the application and get finally the permit to export in Europe. And this is really not every company or every SME or have the capacity to do that. So after all this process, a revision was made, and now they recognize the history of safe use. But this is the type of work, for example, that is done not only within a country or a region, but it's really a global movement where UNCTAD also contributed to that. And have other experience with here the Sachainchi. And this is, for example, for market access, but we also work, you know the Nagoya Protocol on Access and Benefit Sharing. So we provide guidelines to policymakers on how to, for example, in Lao, we work on how to develop a contracts for commercial use that can help inform the authority when they issue permits for the commercial use of biodiversity. We also work with the Convention International. We work also on traceability issues, because traceability is a very important issue for the work that we're doing, not only for the markets that they require traceability a buyer, but also the government needs traceability, particularly if you're working with CITES listed species. And we develop traceability systems. We have national strategies. For example, in Peru, they have even developed a national strategy for the development of the sector that involves the Ministry of Trade, Agriculture, Forestry, Foreign Affairs, Finance, business associations, commercial chambers, that they develop a common strategy on how to develop the sector for the next decade. And they have even a committee where they monitor the work and the activities that are being done. And that's also very interesting, because we are cooperators, we support them, and we also see how the work that we do can complement and support their sector strategy. Another interesting part of the work we do is normally the market access. In there, I mentioned we normally work very closely with trade promotion agencies. Like from Peru or Corpay at that time, or Pro Ecuador, now or Pro Colombia. And we see how do we enhance and coordinate and support the building synergies. For example, we on trade fair participations, I know with Helvetas, several companies participated last year in BioFac. So that type of support is also being given, for example, for trade fair participation in crucial fairs that are relevant depending on the country and the sectors that are being developed. We have, so Expo East, Expo West in the United States, but you also have Anuga or BioFac that are very important trade fairs for the different companies. They have also an interesting campaign is, you see here this person, they're developing online campaigns. due to the COVID and the difficulty in some companies that are not able to access international market, they start developing. This was the Ministry of Environment. I remember what Ministry of Environment of Colombia, who was developing a marketing campaign to facilitate business to consumer access for Biotrade products. And they even like bet who will buy more products between these different potential consumers. So they're always trying to create new partnerships, new work, and they even establish further strategic alliances with Amazon, so that the Biotrade companies or the companies that are developing sustainable products can have more direct contact to Amazon to sell their products through their online channels. Another interesting initiative, of course, you have the business-to-business partnerships, where in the past you really organize buyer-sellers meetings. You see here, it was, I think it was in Brazil that they organized the buyer-sellers meeting, where there's normally do it back-to-back with a trade fair. And the idea is really to try to see how do we disseminate further information. But it's not only important, this trade fair or business-to-business program. You also need to know the market. You need to know what are the market requirements, what are the distribution channel, what is the competition. So that is also the work, for example, that is being done here with the Marula, with the Access and Benefit Sharing Initiative in Southern Africa. So they did all this analysis and helped to see how the companies target and access these interesting markets and sectors with a product that might be known or not be known yet. Then, yeah, we even do like a fashion show, if you see there, because we also work with handicraft and fibers for a fashion show. So it was a very interesting experience as well. And then, of course, it's important to also know what are the requirements or the non-tariff measures that are applicable to the products that we work. We developed this guideline. We did this study on identifying not only, we did a global survey where it was targeting Vietnam, Peru, and Colombia, and you identify what are the constraints that they have to export personal care, food, and phytopharma sectors. You have the information there and even the QRL if you want to see the results. It tells you what are the problems, what are the opportunities, and how, if it's more related to sanitary or not sanitary and phytosanitary measures, or if it's a trade barrier. And then you have also the UNCTAD.org, which is a database that you can access also that information with the different HS code. And then I wanted also to be conscious of time, so I wanted also to share with you. You will also have a little more explanation of how to access and work the database. We developed trade and biodiversity statistical tool. So what we did is imagine from all the HS codes, over 5,000, we went through them and we identified which are those that relate to biodiversity-based products, so that are related to those that are from biological origin. We extracted that information and gave us around over 1,800 biodiversity-based products. And these products, because having access to all that information online, it would be very long and very difficult to assess. So we developed a product classification. So in that product classification that was developed, we identified different groups, subgroups, categories, and subcategories. So for example, we have the group will be plants, live, animal, and plants. Then the category below that will be animals. Then the subcategory, so we go more into detail, will be fish. And the third one will be ornamental fish. So it really, we group all those universe of the biodiversity-based products into different categories. And we develop an online database of biodiversity-based products, where you will have information in here. We took out this information from the export of Southeast Asia from 2010 to 2020, where you see how it have evolved. You can have that type of information. You can also have, for example, here, South Africa top export sectors in the average. So you can also have this type of information. You can have the growth rates how much is the trade of biodiversity-based products in relation to the total trade of a country, a region, to a specific partner, for example, to the European Union or to the world. So it's really like this trade and biodiversity statistical tool where you can have access to trade flows and trade indicators that can help you do the analysis of where could be more interesting for a company or an organization to access, of course, considering the past demand, the trade that has been taking place. This information it's already free available, the database, the online database. You see there the website. I'll share also with you over the chat. And this you will have also further information of this system. As you know, we are a trade agency. We have a statistical unit, a branch, who handles all this. This is only for the trade and biodiversity products, but they also have a much broader database of all the trade of products, of creative economies, of plastics, for example. And then you will have that session, I think on 1st of April. They will tell you how it works, that platform as well. So you can also extract further information. And then I also wanted to tell you a little bit about the another stage of what we work. So I was telling you a little bit about the supply chain management, where we have, for example, the importance of wood agriculture and collection practices, aim to promote the involvement of communities, to create dialogue and building trust, and a joint work together to ensure that the sourcing it takes place and respect access and benefit sharing and the flow of information. And then we have developed different strategies. In here on the left-hand side, we develop a guideline for management plans so that you ensure that when you extract a resource, like benzoin, it will not, the amount that you can extract will not be reducing the availability of the resources in the long term. So we developed this methodology. It's quite interesting because in some cases it can be very, very expensive. Like I remember they were telling us, like, depending on the size of the region, it can be even like 500,000 or 50,000 if it's small. And we came up with these methodologies that through statistical information and econometrics, you help to determine the extraction of the resources. So you first, of course, identify the areas, assess the managed resources, how much do you have, define the good practices to be implemented, the follow-up and monitoring system, and you implement and document. And then you develop an econometric model that can help ensure as you get more information and time goes by, you can improve the process and how much resources you can extract it. For example, that's the experience we have here with Candelilla. On the bottom, the right hand, that little flower in Mexico, where we implemented this methodology as a pilot project for 6 months. And then it provided them the guidelines and the tools and the variables that need to be monitored so that the resource could be used in the long term. Candelilla is crucial because it's what is the butter that they use for the lipsticks. So all the lipsticks normally have that butter. So imagine the demand is quite big and it's an endangered species. So that's why they really need to monitor and develop tools, and then they implement, the government use our tools to develop the strategy on how to determine the extraction, how much Candelilla you can extract at the national level. So these are some of the activities that we work with: management plans, access, benefit sharing, and community dialogue, resource assessment. We also work on, partners have also worked on enhancing the business skills. You have developed guidelines on how to develop management plans, market strategies, cost analysis, value chain development, improve the quality of products from packaging, from marketing, but also the funding that I was telling you through public-private partnerships, and even developing coaching for community-based organizations on how to enhance their business management skills of the leaders. And then this is the last slide I have. It will be to give you some peek on the next presentation that will be done by ITC, which is the International Trade Center, and our colleague Anna, she will join us in a few minutes, around 11. And the idea is really, now that we have the Biotrade principles and criteria, as you know, they're the basis of the work that we're doing. in the ground. So that's why we differentiate what biotrade is with capital B and capital T, with what is more generic with lower caps. That is biotrade in general. So this differentiate what biotrade is sustainable in the social, economic, and environmental terms. And these principles took us 2 years to be updated. So now that they were updated, we profit from the expertise Anna joined us here with ITC, who they have developed this very interesting tool and upload their principles and criteria so that the companies, projects, entrepreneurs that are interested in assessing their practices against the biotrade principles and criteria as an initial step to understand what it is. Of course, not the whole set of principles and criteria, but an initial step, gradual understanding of what the principles and criteria are, so that they can identify what are the areas they might need to improve, what they're complying already, and even have a very nice database of the resources that are available. And that's it. Thank you very much. I don't know if you have, let me see if there are questions in the chat. Welcome, Anna.
Okay, thank you very much, Lorena. Thank you. That was very comprehensive. And Tip from Laos has a question that I have tried to answer, but I probably did a very, very bad job. So please, Tip, if you want to ask the right question.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Miguel. And thanks, Lorena. That's very good presentation. Thanks a lot. I've learned a lot, actually. My question, actually, I put in the chat box. You share a lot about the management practices, to help all the producers and, companies. But when it's come to, I just wonder when it's come to a particular technology or innovations. So any particular things on that should be, easily transferred to our region, because I'm trying to link with the current government initiative to really work on innovation, science, and technology. And I'm sure they will more or less select the particular potential produce of Laos, I think.
Yes,
that's my question.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Deep. Yeah, we have that experience. There's of course some technologies innovation that have taken place in some countries and some specific value chains. You can have that information, for example, depending on the sector and the product, and I can liaise you directly with the partners who are working in that, so that we really try to foster the sharing of experience. I have to see, but I think we have some experiences of publications that came out on technology that were enhanced. For example, on the distillation of essential oils, particularly because they're normally done in remote areas. This was a specific case that I was familiar with, and we work in trying to develop a distillation technology that would not require that much energy. Because if they will use the normal energy that you have to develop a product, it would be the whole town. It will need the whole town to just launch one. So it was not possible. And so we work with universities and also this was a really remote community in the Amazon. So just to reach there, you have to go by airplane once every 2 weeks, because you cannot go by river or walking. It was really remote. So we actually work with universities, with the Germans, with the government of Ecuador and the Biotrade program, and how to help to design a new distillation equipment that will target that specific environment where the product with these herbs were extracted essential oil. Because instead of selling, imagine all the tons and tons of herbs, that we wanted to do the distillation and obtain a quality essential oil already in the field. But I think we have also, let me just try to see, I'll send you. I think there's also this Jeff Calf project where they have developed technology. I can send you, I'll search for it and I'll send you or I send to Miguel if I don't have your mail, this publication from the program. And they also tackle the technology component. But in general, there's a lot of innovation going on. And normally the best time to do it is really like to identify which sector, which value chain, which product, and we ask around the partners. And you can go directly with them to ask them what are the lessons learned. We promote, we really aim to promote this South-South exchange of experiences in every topic that is relevant. I hope it was useful. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Indeed, you did a really good job answering the question, which I didn't. I just butchered the question and thought it was about something else, so it was my bad. Any more questions? Any more comments? I have not seen any more questions on the chat box, and I haven't seen any of you raise your hand. So if that is the case, then we will thank Lorena for her presentation and all her materials. Of course, I forgot to mention, we will be sharing these presentations too at the end of the week. Okay, so just so you know that this will be all available to you. And now it's the time then to welcome my good friend Ana Patrícia Batalhone, who works with ITC, the International Trade Center. Thank you, Lorena, and I will talk to you soon.
For sure.
So now it's time to move on to Ana. Ana is working with the International Trade Center in the Green to Compete initiative, which is a fairly new endeavor, but very exciting. She is a Brazilian national who has been living in Switzerland for about 10 years, isn't it, Ana? Close to 10 years. We had the pleasure of working together for a bit in ITC, but I'll let her introduce herself properly and introduce her work. Ana, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Miguel. Thank you so much. Also, thank you, Lorena, for making a brilliant segue to my presentation. And thank you for the invitation as well. It's my pleasure to be this afternoon with you. My name is Ana Batalhone. Thank you so much for the perfect presentation, Miguel. Maybe what I will add is a bit on ITC and on the work of Green to Compete. Well, so ITC, as I understand you also have a presentation, full presentation on ITC, is the joint agency of UNCTAD and the World Trade Organization. And we are based in Geneva as well as UNCTAD. And our mandate is to support the private sector in developing countries to internationalize. So we do that in different ways. We provide capacity building programs to small and medium-sized enterprises. We work directly also with business support institutions to provide also institutional strengthening. And we also develop different public goods, such as market analysis tools, as well as different flagship, not presentations, but publications on the topic of trade competitiveness and SMEs. And one of the key aspects of the work of ITC is also about sustainability, being environmental sustainability also at the core of the work of what we do. And the way we work on sustainability, environmental sustainability, is really through technical coaching assistance programs that directly support SMEs, also smallholder farmers and cooperatives, to integrate sustainable business practices into their operations and also identify international markets for sustainable products. And as we know, one of the key requirements of international buyers, the international trade, is compliance with voluntary standards, with sustainability guidelines that are either set by the public or either governments or international organizations or privately by standard bodies. This is an important aspect of trade. And based on this specific requirement of the sector, different sectors towards their SMEs and their value chains, we also understand it's important for the private sector to understand and be able to navigate those different requirements in a more organized, structured way. Precisely the Biotrade principles and criteria which is a guideline on sustainability practices for value chain actors working with nature-based products, such as natural ingredients, sustainable tourism. This is also a guideline that requires reflection and understanding from the private sector, from the company perspective, and also from the institutional perspective. And with this in mind, in order to provide a solution that allow users, such as value chain actors and support organizations, to better understand what is the Biotrade principles and criteria, and what does it take to become compliant with it, we have developed with UNCTAD ITC and UNCTAD Biotrade Initiative, the Biotrade self-assessment tool. So my presentation is mainly a small demonstration of what is this tool. I don't have slides, but I will guide you through the tool so you can have an idea how a company or how a project manager can use it and navigate. And by doing so, becoming aware of their performance, so their business performance in comparison with a Biotrade principle and criteria. So Miguel, I will be sharing my screen. If yeah, I think that's I already have that feature. And yeah, I'll be showing you this tool. If at any point something is not clear, please feel free to directly interrupt me, since I'll be following a flow of the demonstration. So I'll share now my screen, and I'll ask Miguel to confirm when you are able to see it, so I can start my presentation.
We can see your screen right now.
Okay, great. So I am here in the URL sustainabilitygateway.org Biotrade. I have also shared this link in the chat, so you can also have access to it. And what is this page? So this page is the starting point of the self-assessment tool. This page is hosted in ITC's Sustainability Map domain, which is a virtual platform for sustainable value chain development, which I believe you will also have the chance to learn more about it when you have the ITC presentation. So I will focus mainly on this page, the Biotrade knowledge sharing and self-assessment tool. So as a user, when I come to this page, I'm able to see more information of first, what is Biotrade? Yeah. Who is behind Biotrade? Who are the different partners that have created the Biotrade initiative, the Biotrade principles and criteria, the different institutions involved in the Biotrade program, and also what is the main purpose of this collaboration ITC UNCTAD. So here users, they find information about the self-assessment tool. So this is the landing page, and also the possibility to identify other type of information resources related to sustainable management of biodiversity-based value chains. First of all, we have a network of companies and institutions that are implementing Biotrade. As of today, the network has mainly emphasized the institutions that have implemented Biotrade programs at the local level. Also, this is an invite to your institution. Yeah, if you're interested or if you are already implemented Biotrade, to have a profile in this page, and also through this profile, you also have an additional entry point to disseminate the work of what you do, yeah, as an institution related to Biotrade and biodiversity-based initiatives. So besides this network of institutions and companies, we also have a library of different materials, resources that are published by different organizations worldwide regarding sustainable management of biodiversity-based value chains, and also materials that were published under the framework of the Global Biotrade Program, which is implemented by UNCTAD. You have materials in different languages, also focusing on different value chains, countries, so you can navigate through the filters and identify different kind of resources, such as studies, also reports, training materials, audio-visual materials that can be useful also for your institution and also to your network in your specific country. So this is a snapshot, yeah, of this landing page. So with that in mind, I'll now start the presentation of the self-assessment tool. So as a user, there are two choices, yeah, either you're a new user, which is our case today, or you are a returning user. So depending on the type of user you are, you have a different path to follow. As a new user, you're invited to select a specific self-assessment. And why a specific self-assessment? Because even though the Biotrade principles and criteria, they are a single document, yeah, so it's one set of principles and criteria developed by UNCTAD. When we speak about biodiversity-based value chains, we are speaking about many sectors and many products. So it's important to differentiate how these principles and criteria, they are applicable to a specific group of products. So that's why, together with UNCTAD Biotrade, we have differentiated each self-assessment for a specific sector. So your first task here would be to choose one of these self-assessments depending on the sector of your interest. And let's say in our example, we are interested in terrestrial non-food sectors. So let's imagine like I'm a company from Laos and I'm producing, I'm sourcing some kind of natural ingredient to produce cosmetics, yeah? So with that in mind, you can, you have also two options. First, you can explore what is this Biotrade principle and criteria for this specific sector that I have in mind, or you can immediately start the self-assessment. So if I click on the first option, explore the standard, what you will see is mainly a snapshot, an overview of this specific principle and criteria. So you literally see here a description about it, geographical scope for this specific guideline. Also, you see what kind of value chains could be applicable to these principles and criteria. And more, and further, you also have information on the requirements in terms of environmental, social, management, ethics, and quality. So how many requirements are covered in this specific Biotrade principles and criteria for terrestrial non-food sectors? You can have an idea of the percentage of coverage of these requirements by different sustainability topic. Also the number of requirements covered in this specific sub area of sustainability. And you can also navigate each of this, let's say, set of requirements related to environment by subtopics, because yes, naturally within each of those areas, you also have different criteria specific to items such as soil, water, biodiversity, forest. So it's a very extensive and comprehensive assessment of how a specific principles and criteria for terrestrial non-food sectors, what is covered within that documentation. And this is mainly a feature of the self-assessment that is embedded in Standards Map, which is also a public good of ITC that provides, let's say, information about different sustainability requirements and sustainability guidelines. And this is mainly useful to have a first understanding of what is the coverage of this specific guideline, in the case, the Biotrade principles and criteria. And with that information in mind, go and start your self-assessment. It's not necessary to go through this step, yeah, but this is an additional step that can be important, especially for institutions or research purposes, since it gives a lot of information of each of the sustainability aspects and also how this is referenced in the document of the principles and criteria. So I will now show you how the self-assessment works, yeah? And just saying that this first part of the, let's say, the self-assessment tool is really to provide an overview of this specific guideline and main questions related to requirements, how to comply with it, also the governance structure of the UNCTAD Biotrade initiative, since it's UNCTAD Biotrade initiative, the main body developing this guideline, and also additional resources. So with that in mind, I'll go back to the Sustainability Gateway page where we have the landing page for the self-assessment, and I'll click the option Start Self-Assessment. Once I do that, you also have a detailed step-by-step of what to do. But since we are doing a live demo, I will immediately show you. So we don't need to go through each of the steps, since I'll go them live with all of you. But this is also useful, so you have a reminder once you go again to this self-assessment and you make your own self-assessment, you can have refreshment of how to do in every step. So let's get started. We click on that, and I will be invited to create an account in case I don't have an account. Or if I do have an account, I'll be invited to log in. In my case, I already have an account. So I'll also skip the process of creating an account, which is quite simple. Yeah, you just need to click register for free and follow the subsequent steps. And you'll be able to start immediately. So I'll go to my account, which I had already logged in. So you can see here on the top, you see my name, yeah. And when I go on that, I will show you the dashboard, which is mainly this page. So that's the first thing you will see when you have an account. And as an account owner, you have different options of what you can do with your account. So you can create a company profile. Let's say you are representing an institution and you want to see actually what is exactly the path for a company by using the self-assessment. So you can create, let's say, a fictional company profile, yeah, just to try and see how it is, the self-assessment. Or you can immediately create an institutional profile or an individual profile. And how to create a profile? You need to go in Get Featured. Yeah, so that's mainly what I clicked. And you have here all the options of profiles you can create for yourself. In order to do the self-assessment, it's necessary to have a company profile because this is a tool for companies, yeah, for value chain actors. So they can benchmark themselves against the Biotrade principles and criteria. So then my suggestion would be that you click a producer company profile. And again, you follow the necessary steps here to create your profile as a company. As I mentioned, I already have an account. So I have a company profile that I'll show you how it looks like. But if you create from scratch, you really need to follow the steps here in Create. Once you have a company profile, you'll be able to see this on the left side menu. You see My Company. So this is all about the information of your company. And you can also have an idea what kind of data a company would be able to fill in, to include in the profile. And all the information here belongs to the company. So this is a profile that only the company, the user behind, will be able to manage and change. So you can really customize as you wish your company profile, and providing information that goes from naturally the company name, contact information, any social media accounts that the company has, the company size, also questions about if the top manager is a man or a woman, what is the age group of the top manager. These are interesting questions for us also to understand the governance of the company when it comes to gender participation and also youth participation. But these are all questions you can customize and fill in as you wish. Yeah, so you don't need to complete all, but naturally, the more you complete, the more attractive your profile will look like for the external audience. You're also invited to fill in information about your production. In the case, my fictional company, since I don't have a company, but this is my profile for trainings, my fictional company is from Brazil, yeah, my home country, and my company is producing Brazil nuts, yeah, which is a biodiversity-based product from Brazil, from the Amazon, not only from Brazil, but from all the Amazon, and also acai berries. So as you may have seen, I added different information about my product, yeah, and which allows you also to be quite specific and detailed with this information, which again is very interesting because if I find your company in the network of sustainability map, which is this large database of sustainable value chain actors, and also if I find your profile in the page of the Biotrade self-assessment, this is also, let's say, an additional channel for you to disseminate the work of your company. So here is about my products. You also find information about any certifications that the company may have. In the case of my fictional company, I have the Fair Trade International. So that's why you see information about it. And you can also have more certifications in case you have them. So you can add as many as you have. I also added information about my geolocation. So any interested buyers or any interested stakeholders that come across my company, they know exactly where I am based, yeah. And you also have information about any assets, any factories, any land that you may own, as well as information about media. So for example, the logo of my company, photos of the products that I produced, photos of my facility, photos of my staff as well. So any kind of audiovisual information you want to be showcased in your profile. There is also a page about the privacy, because it's also up to the user of the profile to decide if this is a public profile or if this is a private profile. If this is a public profile, your profile will be also shown in Sustainability Map Network, which is this map, global map of companies that are working on sustainability and are showcasing their work through this profile. So this is called the Sustainability Map Network. I will show you quickly how it looks like, so you have an idea how your profile will be displayed. But just to emphasize that it's the choice of the user if the profile is public or private. And also very important, and for our presentation, perhaps the most important part, is the feature of assessments. Because it's through this feature that I start my self-assessment of the Biotrade principles and criteria. And just before going to that, I will just quickly show how it looks once you finish updating your profile. So it gives you an idea actually how the information you added is displayed. So here you see my company called BioNatural Company is actually based in Colombia, even though we produce the Brazil nuts, which is naturally, it's found in all the Amazon region, including in Colombia. So my company is Colombian, and you see information here about the contact details and also what am I interested. So I'm interested in identifying new buyers, new traders, and also accessing any kind of funding. So also I make it very clear what am I willing with this profile. And you have the geolocation, so exactly where my company is located. Also, all the information you saw before about my products, my certification, any assessments I have done, completed and made them public, and also any media aspects. So this is how external user would see my profile. And with that in mind, I'll move to the assessments. Maybe I'll just make a quick pause just to see if there is any question up to this moment, so I can clarify any details that perhaps were not very clear. So feel free to, I also have the chat. Let me see if there are any questions here. No, I don't think so. Miguel, is there any?
No,
No?
there are no questions in the chat box, but yes, please, if anybody has a question they want to ask, just fire away, put it on the chat box, and I am manning this chat box, so I'm happy to help raise the awareness of Anna towards any question. So please go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll continue and happy to stop to clarify any points at any point. So here we are at the assessments, yeah? So I made my profile. I am now able to choose which assessment I want to take. And why do I say the word choose? Because when you take a new self-assessment, you as a user, you really have the option to carry out self-assessment against any of the sustainability standards available in ITC Sustainability Map, ITC Standards Map. And some of those are the Biotrade principles and criteria. So as a user of the tool, I can either navigate the different options of self-assessments I can carry out, or I can immediately type Biotrade, and with that, I am given the options of the existing self-assessments that I can conduct. We agreed at the beginning that we are a company producing terrestrial non-food sectors products, so that's the one we are going to select. And once I click on it, I will be able to start my self-assessment. Try to refresh the page. Just let me follow the indication of, yeah. Oh, okay. What did I do? Okay, I'll just quickly log in again to my account. I don't know what I did wrong, but that's also an opportunity if you have any questions or yeah, anything, something is not clear. I'll be happy. I'll just a second, Miguel. I'll just quickly retrieve my account, my login details.
No worries. Take your time. Maybe it is an opportunity for me to come in and mention that on Wednesday, we will be having a presentation from ITC on Standards Map. So much of what is being presented today will be related on Wednesday, but it's not the same. So on Wednesday, it's one level. Here, it's another level. This is the self-assessment tool, which is very closely related to the standards, of course, because we are applying one of the standards, which is the Biotrade principles. But on Wednesday, we'll be seeing how you can compare different standards and understand what's underneath them and see how they talk to each other or don't.
Mm-hmm. And this is on Wednesday, right, Miguel?
Yes, this is on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, okay. So I'm back to my account. Apologies for that little IT glitch, but mainly, okay, let me share again my screen. Mainly, what you need to choose, like you need to select, let's say the guideline that you're willing to self-assess, to benchmark yourself. And now it immediately went to the one I selected, which is UNCTAD Biotrade Principles and Criteria Terrestrial Non-Food Sectors. Once you do that, you will have a set of questions per sustainability area. Yeah, in the case here, we see environment, and you see questions that are based on the Biotrade principle and criteria for this specific sector, and they are framed in a way that you should provide a yes or a no answer. Yeah. So for example, here, the first question I see is, are there policies in place aiming to maintain soils? So mainly as a company, I need to answer yes or no. Yeah. And to have more information of where this comes from, I see just below the text that is retrieved from the Biotrade principles and criteria. Yeah. So the source of this question. And well, you either chooses yes or no. Yeah. You can also include comments. Yeah. That are only for yourself. It means the comments, they are not going to be taken into account when processing your results. But once you complete the self-assessment, you can also download your answers in an Excel file. So the comments can be useful for you as a company, yeah, maybe to take notes or just add, maybe this is in progress, hence now my answer is no, but within 6 weeks, I should go back to this assessment and change my answer. So it's mainly option for you to add any relevant comments related to the question. So the logic is the same, yeah, throughout every question. You answer either yes or no. And once you do that, you save and continue. So you go to the next set of questions related to environment, which is the ones covering forests. And you go one by one, yeah. Forest inputs, biodiversity, waste, water, energy, climate, and every subset of, every subset of categories will have different number of questions as well. So it means, yeah, like it's very customized, no, to the guideline that you're benchmarking yourself. And the same applies to social requirements. You also have questions about the different categories within that. And you complete, as you complete, you save and continue. You may have noticed that many of these questions are answered, yeah, because this is a questionnaire that I have done before. So I saved, and this is saved in my account. It means I can start, then go back. I can reduce some of the questions. And that's also very interesting because you may not have the answers for all the questions at once. So you can always save and continue later, yeah? And once you go through all the questions available for this selected sustainability requirement, Biotrade principle and criteria, you are able to finalize it, yeah? And you are able to see what kind of results you have. And the way the system, the website provides you result is through a score system, yeah, because we have answered questions that were clustered within different categories of sustainability. So you see an overall result of the level, let's say, now if I am to comply with the Biotrade principles and criteria, focusing on terrestrial non-food sectors, my level of compliance would be 39%, yeah? So it's mainly a self-assessment of how you benchmark with that guideline. And the same analysis you see per sustainability topic, environment, social, management, quality, and ethics. And if you scroll down, you will see all the questions that you answered. Yeah, this is mainly the questions you answered, divided by category. Your answer in the second column, this column in the middle. So for example, are there policies in place aiming to maintain soils? I answered no. But to the second question, are there measures in place to ensure soil conservation? I answered yes. And so you see all your answers, and then you also see next to it, the text coming from the Biotrade principles and criteria. So it's a very comprehensive exercise. This is a self-assessment. It does not replace any audit exercise, but it's very useful, especially at the beginning of any improvement work as a company or within a project with the value chain, to be used also as a baseline, because it enables you to have this initial understanding of how far the company is regarding compliance with the specific selected guideline, in this case, the Biotrade principles and criteria. So, well, there are many questions that are covered within this specific guideline. That's why you see it's quite long, the list. And as I mentioned before, you can save as a draft. Yeah, so you can always save, and you can retrieve it once you go to my company assessments that I have, and you will see it here. Like, not sure if it's, let me try to zoom in. You see here, this is exactly the one that we have just completed. And you can go back to it, you can finalize it, you can download the results. So it's really a tool that you use as you wish. And also you can always go back and further work on it. So with that, I conclude my demonstration. Yeah, it's also an invitation, with an invitation to all of you to test the self-assessment, yeah, to create an account, and also to come back to us, to me, to Lorena, in case of questions. We're also happy to provide the same kind of training to a more customized, let's say, context, such as a specific project or a specific value chain. So yeah, please, well, I expect this is the beginning of a further engagement when it comes to disseminating this tool that is quite useful for different stakeholders that are implementing sustainable management practices in biodiversity-based value chains. So on that, over to you, Miguel. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you. Very interesting, very stimulating presentation, as usual. There is a question from Tip on the chat box. She says that some requirements contain many measures. So the question is, shall I mark no if my company could not meet half of them? What about if the measures of the company are at an initial stage? So what about not yes or no questions, but somewhere in between?
So normally when this is a common question we get, no, because as it's either yes or no, in the tool, there is nothing in between. That's why the box comments, it's useful, yeah. Because if it was my company, in my case, what I would do if, let's say, I'm not complying with all the different indicators stated in the question, I would answer a no, and I would add a comment, yeah. Because again, the way we should use the tool is to have an initial understanding of this assessment regarding my company and the guidelines selected. So having that exercise done, you can create for yourself as a company also a very well structured way of identifying any gaps or any areas that you are on track, you're already doing something about it, but you know there is still some work to be done. So my suggestion would be, if you are not there yet, so if you don't fully comply with the answer of the question, mark as a no, and add a comment about it, And once you fulfill that requirement, that indicator, you can go back to the questionnaire and you can change that, So that would be my initial suggestion. So that's why this comments box is very actually useful for that purpose.
And if I may complement what you have said, Anna, I would try to highlight the fact that these self-assessments are actually mechanisms or tools for you to manage, for companies to manage better their performance. And what happens is, well, we all tend to be relatively generous with ourselves, right? When we're undergoing an assessment, we tend to say, yeah, but maybe I don't have it there fully, but mostly, so I'll mark yes. And I would encourage you not to do that and not to let your members or your clients do that, because whenever there is an audit, the auditor, if it's for a certification purpose, the auditor won't be generous. Any third party coming to validate your company's compliance or your member company's compliance with these things, they're not going to say, yeah, but okay, you're almost there, so I'll give you a pass on this one. No, they'll say, does not comply, And if it's a major non-compliance, then you are stuck because it's going to be a major problem, a major obstacle towards obtaining certification. If it's a minor one, then it's a minor one. But the point is, because this is a self-assessment that you can manage yourself, be very harsh, be very demanding, and drive yourself to say, okay, if I were a third party, if I were somebody from the outside looking in, would I give myself 100% mark? So a yes. If that is the case and you can demonstrate it, then please, by all means, get the yes. But if you feel that there is improvement that could be made, well, the suggestion is probably mark no and go in and look at what you could do to improve your management system on this specific point so you can be sure to put it in practice. So yeah, the key message here is be hard on yourself so that others don't have to be hard on you when they come and look. There is a question from Nipapone on the chat box. It says, in case of a company that would like to use the results of the assessments to verify their current position on standard compliance with a client for a financial contribution, to what extent can it be used?
Yeah, that's so my answer to that, and actually to any question that is about how to use it. Yeah. So as a company, you can use it in all the most creative ways you want, with the background that this is a self-assessment. So it does not mean that by completing that, you have the endorsement of UNCTAD or the endorsement of ITC, because it's mainly an exercise for a company or a project to have a baseline of this completion. And as Miguel mentioned, this does not replace an audit, yeah? So it does not replace a further exercise that perhaps a certification body or your buyer would like to carry out. So it's also important to, really try to be as accurate as possible, and also to add this information. No, if you decide to share that with any interested client, that this is the results based on the self-assessment you have carried out of the Biotrade principles and criteria, et cetera, available at. So I think as long as you are clear about this and see this as really as an exercise, you can really feel free to use it, also share with any potential clients, also share with any value chain, so like with any suppliers, also if you want them to carry out the self-assessment, any financiers, but it's really important to emphasize this is an exercise, yeah.
I would probably complement this response by saying, yeah, emphasizing that self-assessments are just tools that companies can use any way they think is useful. So they can use it only for internal consumption and feedback on where their practices are and what they need to improve. But as you're mentioning, maybe as a mechanism to show to a potential investor how far along they have progressed in meeting these international standards. So they can use it as a readiness evaluation with really to highlight the fact that it is a self-assessment. So in many cases, there will be room for interpretation. And whereas one person might interpret it as a generous yes, but okay, another person might interpret it as, yeah, too generous yes, it should be a no, right? So there will be nuance always, unless you get to the point where you can demonstrate, you can evidence the process or the yes in the questioning. But still, what that means is there is this questionnaire, this evaluation form mechanism that companies can present to any third party, investors, prospective clients, prospective partners, whomever, and demonstrate that they're actually being serious about the compliance with these standards and making progress along the way. So it's all up to the company.
Mhm.
I hope we
Thank
have
you, Miguel.
answered the question, Nip. Anybody else wants to ask a question? I'm sorry, I'm muting myself because there's works in a neighboring apartment and there's hammer blows and it's been going on for 2 months. I'm already the edge of my nerves, but okay, we'll live through this one.
I would also like to ask a question, like just a general question. If through, like within your own context and institution and different projects, if besides the different ways, we suggested that this can be useful, if it came to your mind any other idea of how to leverage the self-assessment, and this is just a general question for me, since like we are disseminating this tool, so it's really meant to be useful for companies but also for institutions. So yeah, any ideas also coming from you, that would be very welcome as well.
You know, that's a very interesting thing. You've just made me think. Yes, please, Tip, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of for certain requirement where you have many measures that and very specific. And I think in our context, we are at a very primitive level. And I think it's very good if they really go to each of the box to tick the box, that one, and to really understand, because they need to understand what does it mean too. And perhaps I'm not sure if there's any explained about this. I'm not sure because I haven't been through, but I have the feeling that at the early stage, you may have even difficulty to understand what does it really mean by that. When it comes to specific, if we have a guidebook to really to explain each of the measures, how to use that assessment properly, so that you don't just click yes, no, and put a little bit without really understand what does it mean.
And Tip, one thing you could also do, and here I'll use a fictional example to illustrate. So let's imagine my company based in Colombia is part of a larger program of the Ministry of Trade of Colombia. So the Ministry of Trade is going to support a number of companies to enhance their sustainability compliance with different requirements, one of them being the Biotrade principles and criteria. So as an institution, what I could do, I could download the questionnaire, so the self-assessment without the answers, and I can start using that. That can be a basis of my baseline, for any work with the company, and I can add also more questions, because as you correctly pointed out, depending on the sector, depending on the context, you're not going to have a perfect yes or a perfect no. You will have something in between, and also because, as you noted, this is sector-wise, but perhaps you have a project focusing on a specific product. So some of these questions, they won't have the same weight as other ones, So what is also interesting in this, we started working with some institutions in Latin America, how to customize the Biotrade principles and criteria. Like, for example, in Peru, we know they have already customized, tailored the Biotrade principles and criteria to their own specific projects. This is an idea as well. You can use that as a basis to further customize for the sector, the product, the region, any factors that will influence, on the answers you will get. And also you can add weights. So having the self-assessment already established and existing, and I mean, free of charge, you can download, you can retrieve it, and you have an Excel file, you can really also leverage that document. And this is specifically for institutions quite interesting, yeah, because of course, we don't also expect that as an institution, you would be necessarily providing the support for every company to reply one self-assessment. Yeah, this can also be done, no? Like we have also seen cases where within a project framework, there are local consultants that are supporting the company to complete the self-assessment, mainly a baseline assessment. This is also an option. But I think on the level of customization, and that's what I think your question is based, it's possible to add more, yeah, and make something, let's say, allows version of the Biotrade principles and criteria, yeah. So also this is a possibility if you already have in mind a sector or a specific project. We can also help you to upload this customized version in the tool. So you also have it available for a specific context in mind. I'm not sure if I fully answer your question, so happy to provide more details if you need.
It's fine. At least it's clear that something can be customized. And yeah.
And probably what you could also do is customize it yourself. In other words, customize the way you use the questionnaires. So for example, you noted that we've been discussing the use of an export readiness assessment tool as a mechanism to access a certain type of program or a certain level of training for a program. That is also perfectly doable if you're going to support, for example, accessing a certification program or accessing international markets that have very high standard of requirement in terms of certifications or progress towards certifications in environmental matters, for example. So, you know, the use of these self-assessment tools are limited by your imagination. And while neither UNCTAD nor ITC will endorse the results of your self-assessment, as a BSO, you can use these results any way you want, and they're going to deliver the results that you want them to, in a way, right? As long as you understand what they're there to do. I don't know if I'm being clear. Any more questions, any more comments, any more thoughts? Maybe I would like to highlight Anna's question and ask you, how do you think this tool, this type of self-assessment, would be valuable to you in your assessments, in your work? Maybe I would like then to ask specific people for their insights on this. And maybe I'd like to ask probably my friend Lala from Myanmar, if that's okay, if I can call upon you, my dear, on how do you think this type of self-assessment could be useful for your Myanmar Tea Association members, and how do you think you could use it?
Okay, it's very nice to meet you again. Yeah, I think this is a really good. You see the data surfing on the network is really good for us. So when Anna is explaining, I'm looking at the how. This is the assessment is for maybe who are registered. Everyone that can register, or there are some particular associations or company can register to the self in this website. So this is really good, and then saving a time, and then can study at a self-study on this site. A really good program. I think it's good for us.
Okay, good. Happy to hear that you're finding it useful. Thank you very much. Anybody else would like to share their views and their comments on how this self-assessment tool could be useful for them in their work.
That's useful.
If you have no more questions or comments or thoughts on how this self-assessment tool would be practical for you, no, please tip. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, certainly.
Go,
I'm sure
please.
they're useful tools, and it's been put a lot of effort and been developed for the company. But for us, we haven't tried yet. So, if we pick up, potential sector of the value chains would be very, good for us too, and the reflection from the actual practices and actual experiences.
Definitely, indeed, yes. I think that for you as this business support organization, it would be very useful to have the understanding of companies and sectors in terms of progress towards achieving these Biotrade principles, practices and processes. Anyway, yeah, I agree with you. Any more comments?
Okay, perhaps just a general knowledge to share with our friends too. In this kind of things, promoting Biotrade and things relatively to the company like us, EDC, even though we work with the, a small scale potential exporters, I wonder what is the current stage in Lao context that this kind of tool has been transferred or shared with institution like export promotion and the other associations like Chamber of Commerce and things like that. It would be nice to know the overall picture of the current stage in Laos.
So Anna, I will let you respond that one.
Yeah, if I got it correctly, like you would like to have an idea who else, right, in Laos had access to this tool, right? So Miguel, I'll also refer to you because I recall we have done also this same kind of presentation through to a similar group of stakeholders, also with Helvetas, Myanmar. Not Myanmar, I'm looking at the screen. Helvetas in general, through the Global Biotrade Program, they also had access to the tool, and to the content of the tool. Besides that, we haven't engaged bilaterally with a specific organization regarding the tool, but mainly through this kind of trainings that do cover a group of different institutions and facilitated by Helvetas, and being Helvetas one of the partners of the Global Biotrade Program, we also had in the past different engagements with them to promote the tool, and I think having also this invitation for today is an outcome of that. So also tip, if from your end you have a specific suggestion, of an institution that you think it would be quite interesting to continue this engagement, please also feel free to let us know. We're happy to also do let's say replication of this kind of demo.
And I will probably compliment on Anna's response by saying that the tool itself is relatively new. I mean, it's been live for a couple of years, not even that, like 4 years. So to be honest, we did mention this tool 2 years ago in 2020 when we did the first of this webinar series, but we didn't go in as much detail as we have done today. So it wasn't, presented question by question, and all the thing was not presented. while there are ITC hubs in the region, and there is one ITC hub in Laos anchored in the Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and there is another anchored in Vietnam within the Biotrade offices. The reality is this has not been incredibly promoted. It's not been actively promoted thus far. So who else can use it? Everybody. Who else knows about it? A few people that, but it's not massively known, at least in Laos for certain not. So if you would like to start promoting it, if you'd like to start using it, and please, by all means, go ahead. In any case, because it's a public service, it's a public good, you will never be able to have the exclusivity, right? Because it's an ITC public tool. But please, by all means, just use it as much as you feel you can extract value from it. That's what these tools are there for, to be used as much as possible. And because they give you access to a network, then there's also the principle that as the more people are present, are involved in the network, as many people as possible are involved in the network, then the better for everyone. Because I mean, if it's a bit like Facebook. If Facebook didn't have the 2 billion or 3 billion users it has, it wouldn't be fun. It wouldn't be useful. So, you know, the more people are involved in the network and have put up their information there, the more likely it is that buyers will actually come and look for suppliers or understand what the supply chains look like in the website. So it becomes more active. So all this to say, please, by all means, just go ahead and start using the self-assessment tools, start disseminating the use of the self-assessment tools. Maybe you want to use it as a first step in your conversations with companies and handhold them to fill in their own profile. You know, there's many ways you could make this work, but definitely using the tool for your benefit will also be a benefit for the rest of the people within the network.
Right.
So, you know, it's a win-win all around.
Yeah, I just noticed when you're talking about the biodiversity and ecotourism is one of the change, right? That for Laos is something is important. So the self-assessment tool here, perhaps we have to learn more a little bit what really make it attractive, I would say, to and the benefits eventually to the sector itself. The Tourism Association at the moment, they are working quite hard on getting back, you know, people, tourists from all over the world, especially in Europe, from European. And then there are so many kind of concepts, they call green tour, they call, you know, different things. And whether this could be, you know, a kind of to help them to leverage on their own strength and have a more, you know, recognized kind of standard for ecotourism, that would be interesting.
Oh, it definitely would be interesting. Yes, I completely agree with you. You know, you're making me think. You're making me think of the case of Costa Rica. Costa Rica has been promoting itself as an ecotourism destination for the past 20 odd years, and Costa Rica has beautiful beaches and has really nice seaside resorts, but it's not a destination for, you know, people that go to the beach to party and, you know, have crazy things. It is a destination for people who maybe want to go to the beach, but also to want to go watch the birds in the jungle and walk up to do like adventure tourism, that type of thing. And it's all been built on the back of this positioning as ecotourism destination. So definitely being able to showcase your credentials as an ecotourism destination through the use of these tools, that will help. that will be very valuable.
Mm.
And
Okay.
there is a significant and fast growing market for ecotourism services, particularly now that we have the world sort of coming out of COVID. The awareness of the importance of nature and conservation and being sort of aligned or in touch with nature, that has become much more important, much more relevant. So all these are drivers for business. So yes, definitely Biotrade and these Biotrade assessments will be valuable for ecotourism. No question about it.
Okay. Okay.
Any more questions, comments, thoughts, things you'd like to share? Nothing? Okay. If that is the case and we have mostly run out of time, then it is time for me to thank Anna for her presentation and her participation in this event. It has been a pleasure, like always, to see you. And I thank you for the content, the rich content that you've shared with us. For all the rest of you, I will be seeing you tomorrow at the same time. Tomorrow, we will be looking at ITC's market analysis tools. So tomorrow is all about markets and understanding which are the largest exporters and importers and where are the markets for the goods. So tomorrow promises to be also very stimulating and interesting, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And I thank you for your presence and your patience today, and hopefully I'll be seeing you tomorrow in the morning, in our morning, in your afternoon. Okay? Before we go, can I ask you to kindly put on your cameras for a second so I can take a picture, just for the purpose of capturing the moment. Excellent. Wow, great stuff. Thank you so much. Okay, there we go. Great stuff. Excellent. Thank you so much. So, and it's cheers. 1, 2, 3, cheers. Thank you all. I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.